They don't want what we know out there.
How a person can go from really almost nothing to becoming a millionaire by owning rental properties.
He would always buy these flip houses, and I just remember thinking, this guy is crazy. Why would he buy that house?
In the past decade, there's been a huge surge in the peer-to-peer short-term rental market.
Become an insider. So you have to know the rules before you get the game.
Every second counts. So make every second count.
Welcome to the Real Estate Jam. Whether you're just beginning or the best of the best, we're glad you're here. We will share successes, failures, and strategies for the action-taking real estate investor. And now to your hosts, JD and Melissa.
Hey guys, welcome to the Real Estate Jam podcast. I'm JD with my wonderful co-host.
Hello, JD. How are you?
Melissa, I'm doing good.
Good.
I'm glad you could be here today.
Thank you. Ditto.
Yeah, of course.
Me too.
So we got a pretty awesome show today, and I don't think that we've had this type of guest on before, at least not somebody with this much expertise in the field. Today we got Brandon Bateman. He's the CEO of Bateman Collective, and really Brandon focuses on generating motivated seller leads through online sources. He's got over 10,000 hours perfecting the process of gathering the leads through PPC, Facebook ads, SEO type stuff. And Brandon, we're really excited to have you on the show today. I think you're going to be able to provide a lot of value to us and to our listeners. So.
And I'm super excited just because, you never can have enough leads. So
yeah, that's the one thing everybody needs.
Yes.
We need more leads.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me, both of you. So yeah, excited to have a conversation and hopefully, my hope is anybody listening today will get a little bit of a better idea of, if you're doing digital marketing, how you could do a little bit better. And if you're not, maybe where to start.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if we're going to teach these guys everything they need to know about digital marketing, I think it'll help us out to kind of know what your background is, where you came from, how you got your start on this, and then hopefully we can get into some good content.
Yeah, absolutely. We could, I guarantee you, we'll cover everything they need to know in about 20 minutes. Everybody will walk away with a degree, right? So at least it's how, that's how I wish it worked. So my experience in this industry, I got into the real estate industry about 3.5 years ago. That was when I got my first, so I had a digital marketing company and we got our first client in the space, and we worked with a whole bunch of different companies. We worked with like e-commerce companies, software companies, just a whole bunch of different companies that need this kind of service. And then one day we ran into this company that said, we want to buy houses for cash. I'm like, well, that's weird. You're not selling something, you're trying to buy something. I don't usually market for that, but maybe we can make it work. So we did that. And this company, it was like 2017, the year prior, they had done like $150,000 in wholesale assignments, I think, off of their digital marketing. The following year, we over doubled that, just keeping the advertising spend the same. The year after that, we over doubled it again, keeping the advertising spend the same. The year after that, we doubled our advertising spend. We doubled our returns as well. Last year, they did, I think, $1.4 million worth of wholesale assignments just off of digital marketing in the market. And it's been an interesting journey along that whole thing. You might know them, actually. I don't know if you know Cody Hoffheim by any chance. He's
Cody.
Yeah, he co-founded a company called Wholesaling Inc. Which I think you probably know.
Yes.
In this space. So anyways, that was with his company, and little did I know, who we had done that work for. And he started sending everybody he knew our way to start doing similar things with their businesses. And we did. And now we're in about 70 markets across the United States doing this kind of marketing, trying to perfect this whole idea of how do you find motivated sellers online. And we work with a lot of companies, both companies that rely a lot on digital marketing. It's most of what they do, like Cody, and some companies that have traction with other channels and are looking to add digital as a new thing. So we kind of help them through the whole process with a done-for-you service that kind of gets them up and running and generating leads.
That's kind of a few really big steps, because doubling your income without doubling your ad spend, especially in the competitive motivated seller market, that's a phenomenal. And I'm sure that's, you got to put that warning out. That doesn't happen to everybody every time, and past results don't equal future gains. But that's pretty phenomenal rate of return, and definitely because they were hiring it out, it's a great return on their time too. I'm wondering though, when we're looking at starting our digital ad campaigns and all of this stuff, because we flirted with it multiple times, trying to figure it out on your own is a little bit difficult, because you know what I'm good at? I'm good at evaluating properties, and Melissa's good at interacting with people. But what I'm not good at is this whole other skill set that's so far outside of what my comfort zone is. I would literally have to stop doing real estate to go and learn SEO or go and learn digital marketing. So that's where I think a company like yours really provides a lot of value. What kind of things should somebody who's looking at getting into these markets, or into the digital marketing, expect as far as like what type of channels to open up, what type of return they're going to be able to get? One of the problems that I see every time we talk to somebody in the digital marketing space is they're really concerned about telling me how many impressions we're getting, but impressions don't mean anything to me. That doesn't put money into my pocket. And I don't know how to correlate the new leads that we're getting in that funnel in through all of our different marketing channels and lead catch to the digital marketing that we're putting out there. I have a real hard time understanding those concepts. So that was a super long question. What I really mean is, how does somebody who's looking at getting into this know what they should be asking and where they should look as far as rates of return and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, excellent question. Yeah, there's a lot to do in digital. You know, sometimes people think of the internet like it's just this place. Like I want leads from the internet. Like there's a lot more to it than that, right? That's like saying all traditional marketing is just traditional marketing, right? But you have your texting and your cold calling and your direct mail, and then of course like radio, TV, all these different channels and ways that you can reach people. The exact same thing happens with digital. In digital, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. There's three things that I think really matter more than the other ones. Those three channels are pay-per-click through like paid search channels. So like Google ads is probably the most popular pay-per-click channel. Facebook ads, a great channel, and SEO, which basically stands for search optimization. That's the organic side of Google. So to give a brief summary of how these work, pay-per-click on Google is basically the whole idea of when someone searches, let's just say I'm searching for a way to sell my house fast. There's going to be people who show up there at the top of the page. It's basically the art of making yourself one of those people that shows up at the top of the page. It's called pay-per-click because you pay when someone actually clicks on your ad. You don't pay for those impressions. Of course, pay-per-deal would be nice, but it doesn't exist. So when you work with a company like ours, we have all kinds of predictions. So if that person searches this, then there's X% likelihood that they're going to click, and then X% likelihood that they would fill out a form, and then there's X% likelihood that that person could turn into a deal. And those are all things that you need to watch and monitor. But it's basically the idea of showing up there. And the reason pay-per-click is like people who love pay-per-click, it's like a channel that creates this cult following. And the reason is it's a kind of lead that you just don't get anywhere else. This kind of leads will, like, on one hand, create an amazing business. On the other hand, completely spoil your acquisitions team because it's people who are just like looking for a solution. This is intent-based marketing. Nothing else that you do is intent-based. It's all saying based on someone's situation, maybe we're going to make them become a lead. In this circumstance, it's actually based on them demonstrating that they have intent to sell their house. So the lead quality is incredible. However, it's an auction-based system, and that brings the lead cost high because everybody else likes those leads too. Right. So really, pay-per-click advertising, the consensus is it's not a small budget channel, in my opinion, unless you're going to do it extremely broad geographically. Some people do it with a small budget on that sense, and you can get a lot of leads for the money. But especially in a one market type situation, it's not a small budget channel, but it is one that's probably the lowest cost channel to you in every other way. Operationally, it costs the least because you have such a great lead close rate. From the time to close leads is really short because it's intent based. So the return comes a little bit faster than some other channels. And the leads are just a different kind of lead, but they're very expensive. The other side of that is SEO. SEO is basically the whole concept of using Google for what Google's made for, which is when someone searches something, giving them the most relevant result to what they're looking for. The problem is there's thousands and thousands of websites out there that talk about selling homes for cash. What makes yours more relevant to someone than someone else's website? In Google's eyes, basically the art of convincing Google that you are that relevant result that's also authoritative is SEO. So if you search on Google, like sell my house fast, for example, you're going to see some ads. You scroll a little bit farther, you're going to see some organic listings. Those people don't pay to be there. They earned their way there. And the way they did that was by optimizing to be there. And there's all kinds of things that go into that. But really that's like what SEO is. The advantage of SEO is it gets you those same great leads that you get through pay-per-click, but you get them at a lower cost over the long term because you earned your way there instead of paying to play. However, it takes a long time to actually rank there. If you're looking for a marketing channel that's going to return money in the next 6 months, it's probably not SEO. Right. You have to be ready to be consistent with it. And then the last channel was Facebook ads. This one's a little bit different. This channel is a little bit more similar to like direct mail, for example, one of those channels where you're reaching out to people in an automated way, and then some people opt in by responding. Because on Facebook ads, the way it works is you create promoted posts on Facebook and you put them in people's news feeds who you believe to be motivated sellers. And then those people, if they want to sell their house, they might click on the ad and fill out a form on your website. The lead cost gets low on Facebook compared to PPC typically. So you get a lot more leads for the money, and it's a lot more small budget friendly because of that. So I think for the average investor that wants to get started with digital marketing, that's maybe in the beginning stages of their company or a little bit further than that, I think more often than not, Facebook ads is the best channel for them. And when you try to do PPC with that kind of budget, you just end up burning yourself out because you don't get as many leads as you hope for the money. Versus Facebook ads, you can get a lot more leads. Those leads aren't quite as high quality. Although statistically, they tend to be, you tend for a budget to get about 3 times as many Facebook leads compared to PPC. Right. They're about half the quality. So usually our clients are doing a better ROI from Facebook ads, but it takes more work because you spend more time on the phone with people that aren't quite as serious. You get more tire kickers, all kinds of stuff like that compared to the quality that you get with pay-per-click. Right.
One of the things, I think we could go into each of these, but I want to start with the Facebook ads because that's something that a while back that everybody was talking about Facebook ads, and you could tailor your group that you were sending this out to very, very specific. But then for some reason, Facebook decided to implement some of the fair housing practices on the advertising for real estate, and that really limited. And once that happened, I didn't hear as many people pushing it. And we've struggled because we have ran some Facebook ads. We've struggled being able to target our market or target the motivated sellers in anything other than I think like maybe counties or states we can target them, but deep diving demographics is proved to be really challenging. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. Yeah, it's a common concern for Facebook. What happened is Facebook got sued, and apparently it's discrimination if you want to show someone an ad in one little place, but not another, or you want to show the women ads, but not men, or older people ads, but not younger people when they're related to housing. Now, I think everybody listening to this podcast probably agrees that that's ridiculous, but it's the truth of what Facebook's making us do, and we kind of have to abide by their laws. The path of trying to like hack the system and get around that doesn't work. There's not really a way to get around that. So you have to start thinking, how can you play within Facebook's rules and use it the way that Facebook wants you to? Here's the crazy thing about this. We have certain strategies that we've been using for Facebook ads that we used before those restrictions came. And even at that time, before the restrictions came into place, those were our best performing strategies of all the things that we did. Those strategies didn't have to change at all with those restrictions. They still held true through it. And the way that it's different is we have to stop thinking about targeting and start thinking about qualifying. And that's really how Facebook ads work for the most part these days. I think of it like, let's just say you do direct mail and you compare it to fishing, right? And you just say direct mail is like, if you just said your audience was the ocean, you would literally just be like casting somewhere and then like move down a mile, cast again, move down a mile, cast again, just an even spread of just fishing across the entire ocean, right? That's how direct mail works. The way Facebook works is if you give the algorithm the right data, it learns. So even though you don't target like the reef where you know the fish are, you just give it the ocean, but Facebook starts to learn when it casts near those reefs, it tends to get more fish biting in those areas. And you start to be able to double down on that. And even though you're targeting the ocean, you're only fishing the reefs. That's kind of how it works.
Gotcha.
So it's an automated machine learning, artificial intelligence sort of way of targeting. But there's a lot of pieces that need to happen for it to work. Number one, you have to give Facebook proper feedback. What is a fish? And a lot of people don't do that. And that's where they go wrong with Facebook ads. They're not giving Facebook's algorithm the information it needs to know when it's succeeding. Or they are giving it information, but it's not quality information. Like, for example, every time there's a click, for example, they tell Facebook, good job, I want more of that. And that's not going to help you because a lot of people want to click on ads.
Right.
Or you tell people every time there's a lead, but those leads aren't qualified because you didn't attract the right kind of person based on the kind of creative you're using. I see people all the time running ads that say like, we pay more than other investors or something. If you attract on price, you get people motivated by price.
Right.
You get people motivated by price and you feed that to the algorithm, you're going to get more people motivated by price because it's going to realize that that's the kind of fish that you like. Versus having like a form that's more difficult to fill out that really qualifies for information. For motivation, having an ad that only attracts a motivated seller, not just a retail seller, and having those quality feedback points so that Facebook understands what is a quality lead to you and can help you find more of them. And the crazy thing is Facebook's machine learning, their algorithms are so much more powerful than any of the targeting we've ever tested, even before the restrictions. It is way more powerful, but you have to know how to use it. And it's so different from your other marketing channels. Right. This is why you need to work with like a professional that understands this stuff, because Facebook is not like if you take your direct mail strategy and copy and paste that onto Facebook, you're going to fail.
Yeah. That does make sense. And I know that there's some people out there that got it dialed in. I'm sure they must all be working with your company. Because a lot of the investors that we talk to, even in our high level masterminds, they don't have Facebook figured out. They're trying to figure it out on their own. But I don't think that it's that simple. If you came from a background in working with Facebook ads, you might be able to understand it and handle it a little bit better. I think
it gets a lot of bad press. Like I talk to a lot of people that don't like Facebook. And we even work with people who tried it with 5 different companies and just haven't been able to make it work. And then we can make it work. There's a couple things behind that. It's just, it's a little bit market specific. It doesn't work super great in every market. Some markets, it's like miraculous. Others, it's like good enough. And then others, it just flops and you get all kinds of weird leads. So you have to kind of know like if your market could be a good fit for it. And then there's 1,000 ways to do it wrong when you feel like you're doing everything wrong. So you just got to do it right.
Right. When we go back and talk a little bit about the PPC thing, I think the main question because you said, it's probably not for your beginning investor. If you've never done a deal, you probably don't want to spend your whole bang off of PPC deals. But for our investors that are pulling in a couple of deals a month and you're looking at starting a PPC campaign, is there a way to evaluate your market to determine whether it's going to be worth it before you actually start doing it? I guess when we look at, there's a couple other people in our market that are running PPC ads. Is there a way for us to be competitive without bidding each other up? So we're paying so much for the deal that it doesn't make sense for us to do it.
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a couple different answers to it. So the first answer is yes. Like there are ways to prevent it from like going crazy on cost. However, the only real way to prevent that would be to like put everybody in your market together, or just everybody agrees that they're going to cut their bids in half and just hope for the best, that requires cooperation from everybody. I've never seen anyone successfully do that. So you can do it, especially in a really small market. Maybe that's more reasonable. Bigger markets, it's definitely impossible because someone's going to get greedy, right?
Right.
Things like that work until someone gets greedy. So to evaluate a market and see how it could work, you want to look at a couple things. The important thing to understand about PPC is that there's an invisible hand behind it. It works sort of like the economy. You have your supply, you have your demand, there's equilibrium prices that are achieved. And that doesn't mean that it's always perfectly stable. But what that means is assuming it gets overpriced and people are paying too much on cost per deal, what happens? They lower their budgets or they stop doing PPC. And that decreases the price of PPC. Assuming it's just leads are super cheap and everybody's absolutely killing it, what happens? You call up your guy like me and you say, I want to spend more money on this. Yeah. And you put more money into it and then you push the prices up. And sometimes markets can get like in bubbles where the prices are just like overly inflated. Sometimes they can be like gold mine type markets where they're really underpriced. And sometimes you have the perception that you're in one of those, but really it's you that's different. To give you some context, we work with a bunch of different clients and we see like everybody, I talk with everybody about like, what's a normal cost per deal for you? What are you willing to pay for these kinds of things? And it varies a ton. We have some people where we talk to and they're like, this is just pushing way too high in the cost per deal range. We're not happy with this. Then we find another client in the same market that when they hear about that cost per deal, they say they do that all day long. Right? So you got to think about who are you in your market? Are you the guy that is willing to pay way less per deal than everybody else? And if so, PPC might be an uphill battle for you. But if you're the guy who has lead management dialed in, so you don't let deals slip through the cracks, you have your speed to lead dialed in, so you can get to leads extremely quickly, you can monetize them well. You have your acquisitions process dialed in, so you're closing appointments really well. You have a great dispositions process, so maybe where someone else makes 10 grand on a deal, you're making 20. That makes a huge difference because suddenly your ROI is double and now your ability to pay on PPC is larger. So basically the point being, if you're not the guy that has it dialed in on PPC, sometimes you're going to lose to the guy that does have it dialed in.
Right.
Not necessarily because the market's overpriced, but because if that guy, just to erase all other variables, if that guy makes twice as much money on each deal because he has a better dispositions process, he's going to have twice the ROI that you do. Even if you do the exact same marketing, you do the same everything else. And that's going to give him more buying leverage in those kinds of situations. So you have to think like, who are you in your market? And then as for like, if you can research where the market's at, the answer is yes. You can kind of look up that data on Google. The really tough thing about it is you can't research the like actual conversion rate numbers. So some of the markets that I look in, and I think they are going to be the worst for PPC, end up being amazing. I have clients that pay cost per leads that would probably scare you on PPC that are doing 10x returns because their market just happens to be one where leads tend to be very valuable, either from like a value of deal standpoint, or they have a really high close rate on their leads, whatever the case is. So it's very difficult to evaluate a market without actually jumping into it. The best way to do that, because there's no like hard data that should say that you could do it or not, is just to have a detailed conversation with someone like me who's doing this in a lot of markets and kind of potentially even have experience in your specific market. But even if not, can compare it to other similar markets and what you typically expect and evaluate your expectations for what you can get in PPC. Because while markets can sometimes be overpriced from a PPC standpoint, most often they're not. And a lot of people who think that they're overpriced just aren't the right person, or they're using the wrong strategy. Because if your marketing is half as effective, it's going to cost twice as much, even if the market's not overpriced.
That makes sense. Is what you mentioned there is that you might have experience with your guys' company specifically. Do you have a limit to the number of clients that you're going to put in one? I mean, I imagine that if you're going back and forth between two clients, driving the keywords up, that's probably not necessarily good for business on either. Well, I mean, it's great for you because both people are paying more, but for the investor, I can see where there would be a problem with that. How do you guys handle those kind of situations?
Yeah, it's really a factor of when is a little bit more competition good and when is it not. Because there are times, like to give you an example, like we will take multiple clients in the market, not an infinite number. But Dallas is a market, for example, where we have a few clients. When we took our first client there, it was okay. We took our second, we had twice as much data in the market. Neither of those clients were able to spend near the amount of money to capitalize on all of the potential marketing in that market. But we had twice as much data now, and we were able to get better results for both of them. And then when we got a third client in that market, even better. But it's a market with 8 million people. Right. A small market, it could be more detrimental. So there's benefit for us to be able to collect more data and work with more people in the market, but only if that's strategically on the right channels with the right kind of budgets according to what people are trying to accomplish. So basically our method with that is we never take on a client that would hurt another client's results. If we can help more people be successful, that's great. So we do put a limit. A rule of thumb would be like on a channel, 1 client per million people in a market. Although it sort of depends. And a lot of our clients span all kinds of different things. Like we have clients that target 48 states on PPC. They're in every market, but they probably spend about $30 a month in yours, such a small footprint that it makes virtually no difference. Like you're competing for spot number 1, 2, 3, and they're competing for spot number like 15 on PPC. It's just different.
Yeah.
So if we were looking to get into PPC type marketing using a company like yours, I'm sure. So when we bring on a new acquisitions guy, right, or gal, we tell them, hey, it could be anywhere from 90 to 120 days before you close your first deal and get your first paycheck coming in. I'm wondering what's an appropriate runway or number of months that you need to put on there, because you wouldn't just go out there. I have $4,000 to market total. Put that $4,000 in 1 month and then hope that a deal happens. That's not what it looks like, right? At least that's not what I think it looks like. In our company, we like to try a marketing channel out for a minimum of 90 days, and we need to be consistent with it throughout those 90 days. And then at the end of the 90 days, we'll be able to reevaluate what results came back, or do we have anything in the pipeline? Is there anything that should pay out that we could attribute to this 90-day runway? What do you think an appropriate way to analyze whether or not PPC is working for you, or what should you prepare for before you start doing your PPC marketing?
Yeah, I'm really grateful you asked that question because it does take some runway to figure out how to make it work. I see it drives me crazy. I see so many people in this industry where basically like it's just they try a marketing channel, move on to the next one, try that. And at the end of the day, the marketing channel that they end up sticking with, it's not even better than the other ones. It just happened to luckily work faster. Right. And they're basing their whole business success on luck. Kind of like you can get an acquisitions person and they might find their first deal their first week, right? It could happen. Right. But that's not necessarily a proven process for generating consistent results. That's just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. Yeah, it's a different strategy. So for PPC, we recommend a minimum of 6 months. Same with Facebook ads. SEO, you're looking at longer. Usually the 9 to 12 month range to get traction with leads is typical. Although it depends. You can spend more and make it happen faster for sure. But I think 6 months is like a golden number in my opinion. That doesn't mean that things can't happen faster, but that gives you the chance to really see the potential success in your market. Either way, right? You could start it up and get deals right away. And that gives you a chance to see the bad times too, and how they average out together and what the channel actually performs like. Or it can be a lag at the beginning while you're trying to dial in the right strategy, and you can improve it potentially a lot. The really tough thing about these digital channels is I can take our most successful client, I can take their campaigns and execute the exact same thing to a T in your market, and it won't necessarily work. And in my experience, it doesn't. That's why we have a whole bunch of different strategies that we use, and we try to learn which markets work with which types of strategies. So you have to be ready to test something. And the problem is you don't know after 2 days if it's working or not. You might have to test that for a month or several months, and then you might have to make a pivot after that. And you have to be ready to do those kinds of things. So my recommendation is have 6 months of runway in a bank account. Be ready to be consistent with it. Number one problem people have with PPC and Facebook ads is just not being consistent. And if you can be consistent, you can definitely achieve a better result.
Sure. And I know that the budget for a monthly budget can go, all kinds of ranges. But if somebody was looking to step into that, do you think that they need a consultation to figure out what that budget should be? Or do you guys start them out and say, okay, we're going to do $1,200 a month or, $3,000 a month, whatever it is for the first 6 months. And then we'll reevaluate. How do you know where to start?
Yeah, I can tell you, you'll hear a bunch of different things about this. The really tough thing about the budget question is there is no right answer to that. If you spend more money, you get more leads, you get more data more quickly. You also get more diminishing return compared to where you'd be if you spent a smaller amount of money in a more targeted way. So there's not really the sweet spot until you've really been doing it for some time and you can experiment with what that is for you. I can tell you, for us as a company, we are our number one metric that everybody on our team is measured by is the results that our clients get in their campaigns. And with that, all of our policies, everything is just built on what helps people be most successful. We'd rather take a smaller number of clients that see success than a larger number of clients that won't. And that's why we do 6-month initial terms for the campaigns. That's also why we do a $3,000 monthly minimum for the advertising budget. We have people routinely starting with us anywhere from the $3,000 range up to say $15,000 a month as a starting point is pretty common. To get some context, on that low end, usually we're just choosing one channel, typically Facebook ads or PPC, depending on what's best for the company. Versus on that high end, we're usually doing Facebook ads, PPC, and SEO, all of which with a substantial enough budget that we're gathering a lot of data more quickly. And it's just different use cases, Usually someone on that higher end is someone who's having a lot of success with other marketing channels. And they've seen that we've worked with people that are having lots of success with digital, and they're ready to just delegate that portion of their business. And they want to make sure that funding's not the issue, and they have a team to feed with leads, and they want to basically give that everything they have to be successful. Versus on the lower end, usually that's the investor that's doing maybe a couple deals a month and wants to scale from there, or occasionally someone just getting started. We do work with people where it's their first marketing channel in many circumstances, if it's the right fit for them, which maybe 75% of the time it's not, but 25% of the time it is. It just depends on what the reason for going direct to seller is. So anyways, there's some context for you. Anywhere in that range is possible.
No, I think that helps. And I think you provided a lot of value. You definitely explained stuff to me, whether anybody else gets it or not. I can't really say for sure, but let's say that somebody that's listening to this podcast today, or me when I get off of here, wanted to go and find out more about your company, about what you guys got going on. If I could learn something from you, or just check out your services, where would you send me? And speak slowly so I can write it down.
Yeah, of course. So you'd go to www.batemancollective.com/RELP. And the reason I'm giving you that link specifically is on there you can actually book a call, and you can get right onto my calendar and have a chance to talk with me and someone on my team. So that's really the next step. If you do, I mean, you have to make sure that you have the funds available to enter a new marketing channel. You have to be able to have that runway, everything. But if it's potentially a right fit, I can tell you a lot of people love inbound marketing channels because it creates a much more streamlined business than some of this other stuff that's just a lot harder, that I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy, even though it works, right? It's just really, really, really hard stuff to do.
There's a lot to go through.
Yeah, digital marketing is, I think I think of it like a lot of the channels that you can use in real estate are sort of like making your time work for you. Digital marketing is a good way to make your money work for you. So if you're in that right place in your business where you can afford to do that, I think it's at least worth exploring it.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. And we're really appreciative of you being able to come on the show. I think we ran a little bit long, but that's more because I was super interested in what you had to say. And I definitely look forward to talking to you some more about this. I think it's super important for new investors to know what's out there as far as lead gen. Because like Melissa said in the beginning, we can always use more leads.
Yeah, absolutely. More leads doesn't lead to less revenue. I'll tell you that.
Yes, that's right.
not usually. So anyways, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you, Brandon. It was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Jam. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, check out our website, therealestatejam.com, or find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Real Estate Jam. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email at therealestatejam@gmail.com. See you next episode.